Come with us, back to the dark centuries which sprawl between the sinking of Atlantis and the dawn of recorded time. To the days when the now forgotten land of Aquilonia was the mightiest of nations, and a man's life was worth no more than the strength of his sword arm. Come with us to the raw, untamed world of Conan the Barbarian. Today on the Comic Book Report, Conan the Barbarian, the original comics omnibus volume 1 from Titan Comics Heroic Signatures. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm happy to say I'm back in the world of Titan Comics Heroic Signatures with this review of Conan the Barbarian. These are a handful of the original comics from back in the day. This is the first omnibus volume, and I'm so excited to talk about it today. I missed out when Marvel Comics published these issues some time ago, and I was elated when I heard Titan Comics was planning to release all of these issues in omnibus format. Before we dive in today, I would just like to say a huge thank you to those at Titan Comics for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review. Also, if you're looking to pick up your own copy of Conan the Barbarian, I recommend checking out the channel's sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. You can find a link for their site in the video's description, and if you see anything there you like, you can go ahead and use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you for considering. Now let's go ahead and dive in. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this collection were written primarily by Roy Thomas and penciled primarily by Barry Windsor-Smith. The issues in this volume were initially published by Marvel Comics beginning in 1970. As far as what this omnibus collects, it includes Conan the Barbarian, issues 1 through 26, and material from Savage Tales, issues 1 and 4. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with nice glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and a total of 784 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Additionally, I should let you know that there is a mature content warning as well. While we have instances of violence, we do also have a couple instances of slight sexuality nudity toward the back of the collection. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look to the cover of today's omnibus. I will say right from the jump, this is such a spectacular cover. I believe it's lifted directly from issue 1 of the series. We have Conan battle ready. He has that nice horned helmet on, and right away I was definitely intrigued by this book. I have always been interested in the idea of Conan the Barbarian, and I was never sure where to quite jump in, and wow, did I find the perfect place here. Looking at the spine design, I really enjoy it here. We have Heroic Signatures and Titan Comics at the top there. We have Conan the Barbarian, the original comics omnibus. We have the volume 1. We have the creators. We have a nice little image of Conan. And I'm happy to say, for those that were collecting the Marvel omnibuses of this same line, Titan did an amazing job of trying to clone as much as they could so it stands aside those Marvel books. If you have some volumes of this, some volumes of that, or you want to start fresh here with Titan Comics' release, I just really am amazed at how well they reproduce this. I just think it's a fantastic release. Along the back as well, we have the thumbnailed covers of all the issues included in this omnibus, which I always love to see. A great way to just get a snapshot of what you can expect with this book. We also have a brief blurb about it, pricing information, things like that. And now I'd like to spend a moment just looking at that dust jacket one final time. This time I'll also show you the interior flaps, which in this case just has a lot of written work here, things about the creators, etc. I just wanted to go ahead and hold it all open at a glance, again just so you can see it one final time. It is a pretty standard design for an omnibus of this kind, especially from the 70s. Again, my reference point is kind of Silver or Bronze Age Marvel omnibuses. Again, I like how close this appears to that in many ways. I think if you're an omnibus collector in general, this would definitely fit right at home in those libraries. Now, under the dust jacket, we do have some art printed on it. In addition to this really nice kind of ivory looking design, we have the Conan the Barbarian logo all stylized there. We have the spine retained, just like you see on the dust jacket. And on the back, we do have a nice shield that has some kind of blood in the background, as if it's been embattled. Spreading it all out, you can see it all at a glance. A really classy looking omnibus design here. Really solid work. Okay, and now for all you prospective collectors out there, I did want to show a quick look at that sewn binding. I will say my edition has a nice little eye. I feel like the page is laid down really flat, and I really had no instances of gutter loss. A lot of these panelings had white borders, so again, very little in the gutters, and overall, I could not have been happier with this omnibus's binding. Okay, and with that out of the way, we can go ahead and dive into the omnibus proper. And right when you open it up, we have these beautiful detailed end pages, followed by some title pages, publication information pages, breakdowns. We even have a full numbered table of contents. I always love to see it. But something else I'll talk about with the front matter for this book is actually the introduction or foreword to this collection. I think that this was one of the most incredible pieces I've seen in an omnibus collection in some time. We have an extensive, I'm going to call it big essay from Roy Thomas, where he basically breaks down kind of the comic book history of Conan the Barbarian, how he got it pushed through at Marvel Comics, and essentially goes issue by issue and provides kind of commentary, context, background information on each of the issues included in this collection just about. And that really blows me away. I should note, for someone who wants to experience Conan completely blank slate, doesn't want any spoilers, I wouldn't recommend reading all of the introduction super carefully, just because he does go into some plot elements in these issues in the introduction. I personally loved it. I thought it absolutely set the stage for the collection I was about to read, but I understand if you might want to revisit it after the initial read through and see Roy Thomas's comments on each of those issues after you've read through. That's just a note from me, but I had to point it out because it was one of the most spectacular details I've had in an omnibus in quite some time. Such an extensive introduction. After that, we go right into the first issue of Conan the Barbarian, and we are off to the races. So basically, Conan is a character from Robert E. Howard's fictional novels, and basically Roy Thomas and team wanted to adapt some of them or take that license and make their own tales within the overall world of Conan the Barbarian. Along the way, we'll introduce some other Howard characters from different pieces, kind of melded in here. This is a really spectacular book as well. After reading so much of that original Marvel's Avengers run, I read through all of Roy Thomas's run on Avengers, which was really extensive, and even in those introductions, he talked about Conan a bit, and I could tell that this was such a passion project for him, and reading it here, you can absolutely see that. Also, we have the art from Barry Windsor-Smith, who I enjoy, of course, from things like Weapon X and other comics along the way, and the art here we have from Windsor-Smith is absolutely incredible. The way he has anatomical attention to detail and the fight sequences and all the things that are so well choreographed and articulated here. The worlds and landscapes are so immersive and interesting. It's just really hard to convey exactly how profound this work really is, and I think its legacy will certainly last the test of time. Another note I'll say about the omnibus in general, after that introduction, we do have each of these issues presented, and at the end of the issues, we are given the letters pages, which I skim in general, but these are also a treasure trove historically to see how some of the fans interact with them, or the editors or creators, and that's a really fascinating piece, and I'm so happy to say they are included here. At the back of the collection, which we'll see in a couple minutes, we do have an extensive gallery of extras as well. But again, more on that in a few minutes. So let's go back to the world of Conan the Barbarian. Essentially, he is someone who's known as a Cimmerian, who basically is from this one kingdom in this age that, again, they set it after the fall of ancient Atlantis, but long before kind of recorded history. It's supposed to be in our world, presumably, but it's at a time where the map and the cultures and the customs and the peoples and the kind of magical, mystical elements were so different than what we see today. It was a much more fantastical kind of space, and this is at a time where, strength was valued almost more than anything. And we have this character who's sort of a drifter wanderer who early on in his adventures, it's prophesied that one day he'll be a king. And so we just follow this kind of drifting warrior as he comes to different kingdoms and lands and gets embroiled in other people's conflicts. And, he tries to basically have these military victories. He tries to kind of mercenarily get money where he can, or resource where he can, or relations where he can. And he just kind of keeps going from one thing to another, but he always ends right in the smack center of all this action. Throughout the pages of even this first omnibus volume, we have him toppling kingdoms. We have him fighting and defeating just fantastical beasts. We have him kind of getting betrayed. We have him sort of ending up in all of these different interpersonal conflicts. It's just really fascinating. And I think the time that this stuff was written is really important as well. This was written in the early 1970s. I think the first issue, like I said, came out around 1970. So this is at a time where we're kind of cresting into the Bronze Age of comics, and there's so much nuance to this character. I feel like they really pushed the limits of the comics code in many ways. I know this has a companion series, Savage Sword of Conan, which was a comic magazine, so it was able to dodge the comic code, and I know Titan has some of that content released as well right now. That stuff is in black and white, and it sometimes goes a bit more explicit with violence, nudity, things like that. If you're concerned about that, picking up a book like this, I will say that the nudity, sexuality is pretty limited in this collection. There are a couple instances where they're a bit risque, but it's not really till the end of the collection where we get into the extras where they actually talk about censorship and stuff and trying to appease the comic codes, or we have those snippets from Savage Sword of Conan. That's where there's a couple instances of brief nudity. Otherwise, this collection is pretty clean on that regard, if that's something you keep an eye on like I do. Violence-wise, there's definitely a good deal of violence, but it's not so explicit that I think it's going to turn queasy people away, if that makes any sense. But again, reader discretion advised, of course. The adventures we have in this volume I really like as well, because while each issue feels largely episodic, I mean, there's a couple stories that bridge a couple issues, but in general, it's one issue per one adventure, but they really dovetail into the next sequence absolutely incredibly. I could see people following this monthly and feel like you were just building this grand narrative, and I can also see people picking up an issue here or there where they could and feeling like they weren't missing out on that much and just enjoying a monthly adventure. Because basically you have him at the end of the issue typically going or moving on to the next area or city, or about to try to do the next part of a plan or something, and then you pick up in the next issue either right where they left off or as he goes into this next venture. So again, if you read it sequentially as I did, cover to cover, you get this kind of building kind of quest essentially, but it does still have an episodic feel. It rides the line really well in a fascinating way. Again, I think this is so innovative for the time, especially knowing that this was initially published at Marvel Comics. I think that they took a lot of really interesting swings storytelling wise, and I think that has paid off over time. With a book like this, especially for the time it was written, I'm not going to take time to go through every single issue and the plot line of every single issue, because that would take quite a long time. There's over 25 issues straight in this, and each of them have a full kind of teased out adventure. The pacing of this I thought was also really good. We of course have a lot of exposition, world building kind of stuff, because this is very sword and sorcery fantasy kind of genre, but it still moves pretty zippily. It definitely favors action, and the character is somehow simultaneously layered and very simple, and I liked that. It made his exploits and kind of the world around him the centerpiece more than the internal life of the character, and I think that was the strength of this volume in many ways. I love the fantasy landscapes we got. I love that there's a way where this feels so familiar, but it also feels, again, larger than life, fantastical, a little bit surreal, and I like that as well. One of my favorite issues in here involves this green alien elephant looking creature that's imprisoned that Conan helps try to get revenge for. I love that issue. That was earlier on. We have him fighting giant bat creatures. We have him betrayed by allies. We have him going from different kingdoms, allying himself with other warriors and things. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And toward the end of this collection, we have kind of, I would say, the larger arc of this collection where there's like warring kingdoms that he gets involved with kind of both sides of over the course of a handful of issues. And it's pretty just epically scoped. And I don't really get the impression that it takes itself too seriously, but there's so much room to just have fun. And that's a pervading feeling I had reading this whole omnibus, is that this was just pure entertainment value. Like, it holds up today in 2025, and I think if I was around in 1970, compared to some other things that were on the racks at the time, if I found this series, it would have blown me away. I feel like it's just head and shoulders above so many of its competitors at the time, and I'm just mystified. Like, this feels like such a step forward, especially for the big two. And it's as good or better than every positive review I'd ever heard about it. I am admittedly a bit of a Roy Thomas fan. Everything he's done at Marvel, I've really enjoyed. And yeah, this is just excellent. You can see his passion here. I think that this source material absolutely fit to the comic book medium. Oh my gosh, is that absolutely clear here. The art direction from Windsor-Smith as well, it just doesn't miss a beat. It's so well dialed in. I love the character models, the expressions on faces, the action sequences, the fantastical creatures and battles. It just really hit a lot of things for me that I didn't even expect to love this much. I think being in that sword and sorcery subgenre of fantasy literature too, I mean, this is a defining piece of fiction in that realm, and yeah, it just really holds up. Another thing worth noting is we have other characters that have gone on to have pretty illustrious comic book careers themselves, like Red Sonja and Elric, for example. Really fun introductions to those characters in the pages of this omnibus, or at least where they connect with Conan. Even looking at some of this art right now, I just cannot tell you how much fun I had reading this. And, I took my time with this. While I do think for a 1970s comic, this was a pretty breezy read, I still savored it. This took me maybe a couple months to get all the way through, and it's not an overlong omnibus, but I really enjoyed the time I spent here. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I'm actually on the volume 2, and I'm still enjoying the ride. Now, as we make our way to the back of the collection, we did have those snippets from Savage Sword of Conan, but we also have the extensive gallery of extras, and I will say it is extensive. We have some script pages, we have behind-the-scenes artwork, pen and ink kind of outlining stuff, we have other kind of house ad materials, different cover art or covers to collections, we have that word I talked about censorship, we have a whole sequence of like essays or afterwords. Can't forget a map of the Hyborian Age, which is kind of the map of the realm at the time. Again, I think that this is another huge selling point for this omnibus for me. As an omnibus collector, one of my favorite things to see is a good handful of extras. I'm a sucker for not only artistic extras like cover art or behind the scenes sketches or pen and inks or original art scans, but really like written extras, like some of those essays, and skimming through this and making my way through, this is pound for pound some of the best extras I've seen in a volume. Between that gigantic introduction at the beginning, I think they also provided a map at the front of this collection, and then all of the treasure trove of extras at the back of this, it really does set it apart. It's such a good value for the price point, and it really does help pad out this omnibus even more. I have read some of the Jim Zub run on Conan the Barbarian, and I'm dabbling with a couple more things here and there, but for me, this might be the shining star for the Conan franchise that I've had the privilege of reading so far. Yes, is it a little bit dated? Of course, but I still think it really holds up. It shines, and I absolutely see why this has had such a lasting legacy and impact. And that's really going to bring us to the end of Conan the Barbarian, the original comics omnibus, volume 1 from Heroic Signatures, Titan Comics. And now all that's left to do is to give this collection a grade. It should come as no surprise after hearing me rave about this series for the last going on 20 minutes, but the Comic Book Report is happy to give Conan the Barbarian, the original comics omnibus, volume 1 by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor-Smith from Titan Comics Heroic Signatures, an A. This is an absolute must-read from me, especially if you're a fan of sword and sorcery fantasy fiction. For an early Bronze Age run, I think that this is such an innovative step forward in the medium, and I cannot believe how well these issues still hold up. It's a perfect place to begin Conan for new readers, and honestly, this is a series I'll think about quite often for some time. It has been a joy not only to read this, but to venture forth into the Volume 2, which I'm happy to say is also quite strong. But this is just my take on this first Conan the Barbarian omnibus, and I would love to hear yours. Have you read this book? Have you considered it? Are you a fan of Conan the Barbarian? Let me hear all about that in the comments section. I would personally love to get some great discussions going. Doing this review was a real treat. Thank you so much for taking the ride with me, and a huge thank you again to those at Titan Comics for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks, and have a good one.